We put this word randomly in there twice, by the way. Randomly hanging out with random people. So lots of randomness going on. So it starts to beg this question about what is it then to be lonely. And of course, if we're seeing that there's an antidote to loneliness, which is to be secure, then again, this suggests that he's telling us that loneliness is a disease. But it also suggests that it's a disease, fortunately, that can be cured. Now, there's a difference between, as Darlene was saying, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And there's also a difference between having lots of people around and feeling connected. So like you're saying that you can be in a room full of people, for example, and still feel really, really lonely. There's this song by a band called Bush. They were around like in the 90s, and I hated that band when they were around. I just really hated them. It seemed like it was a national sport for a while to hate that band. But they have one song I really like a lot. It's called Glycerin. And in this song, he says, I'm never alone, but I'm alone all the time. And of course, he's talking about a life where you're always surrounded by people, but you don't connect with people. Because, being lonely is not necessarily to be by yourself. To be lonely is to have nobody around you who you can share yourself with. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have all of the same ideas, that you have to think the same way. And too often we get stuck on that idea like you have to have people around who are like you. Well, if you need to have people around who are like you, then just get a bunch of mirrors and hang them in your room. And you'll have lots of people around who are exactly like you. Now, of course, you can't necessarily connect with that same person the same way that you could with other people. And so that's the thing that we're really seeking, is that security, that connection with other people. And so that goes back to the question that I was asking Pauline about how is it that you form those connections between like having a real friend or a real connection. It's that word real that's in there. And so what is it for a connection to be real? And it probably comes down to being able to be secure in being able to share your thoughts, being able to share your opinions. And I hate using the word free from judgment, because none of us is truly free from judgment. And I don't know if it'd be a good idea to have a friend around who was completely judgment free towards you. And you really want somebody around you who, no matter what you do, they make your life, no matter what you do, they always tell you, that's right, you do that, go for it. And so imagine how it would be if you woke up one day and you realize that everybody in your life realized that they've been made worse by your presence. Now, a lot of people feel that way. They think, oh, the world would be better without me. No, that's it. The world would be better without very, very few people, man. That person is incredibly rare. I can almost promise you that none of you is that person. Because we think like, oh, I make things worse. No, there's a good chance that you make things neutral. Or you make things maybe even just a little bit worse. And that's why it's a good goal for life to aim and first off at just stop making things worse. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to do. Even if you're looking at your life and you think, oh, my life is complete shambles. First things first, just stop making things worse. And then after you stop making things worse, then hopefully you can keep things neutral. And then after you've got a good control over that, now you can start making things better. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people just go from one extreme to the other. Oh, I'm making the world worse, so let me turn it around all of a sudden and make things better. Well, the first step to all of that can't be jumped over. If you leap over that first step, the process is not going to forgive you. You have to first stop making things worse. If you find that you're a person who just like reflexively lies about things, like if I ask you, where were you yesterday? What'd you do yesterday? And you went to, the volleyball game, but you said I went to the mall. And then you kind of catch yourself like, why am I lying about that? And you're constantly lying and guarding yourself. That would be the first step then. Stop saying things that aren't true. That happens before telling the truth. You might say, well, I'm going to start telling the truth. First things first, just stop saying things that aren't true. As soon as you can guard yourself from that, and as soon as you can stop your tongue from saying things that aren't true, sit with that for a little bit. And then you can start saying things that are true. But you've got to be able to know the difference between those two. And we think it's so easy to just say the truth. And I'll tell you the truth. that whatever comes after the word just in life is usually bullshit. Or whatever comes in life after you hear all you have to do is, whatever comes after that is usually bullshit. Not always, but usually. Look, all you have to do is just start telling the truth. It's not that easy. It's not that easy for a lot of reasons. Even if the truth is good, it's difficult for a lot of people to tell. You have to, look, to tell the truth, it's not going to be a just for some people, for a lot of people. Even if the truth is good, we still struggle to tell it a lot of times. And so first things first, stop saying things that aren't true. Then sit with that for a little bit. Then you can start saying things that are true. First things first, in your life, just stop making things worse. Stop making things worse. I don't know how to do that. You do. You need to stop doing the things that you know are making your life worse. And each of those, as hard as it is, each of those might be its own battle that you have to fight. You might have 4 or 5 things in your life that you know are making your life worse. You might have 4 or 5 people in your life that you know are making your life worse. And each of those people or things is a different fight. It's a different struggle. And it's hard to overcome those things. Especially when you look at it like after you fight one of them, and it takes a lot out of you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have 4 more? Well, yeah, that is the price that we pay. But you have to figure out if it's going to be worth it. Is your life going to be worth it after you get those things back on track? So then first thing, stop making your life worse and keep things neutral. And what that means is don't allow new things into your life that make your life worse. Don't allow new fights and battles into your life. And those are hard to see coming a lot of times. Especially the people, because if you find yourself having to extricate people from your life, kick people out of your life because they're making your life worse, but there's almost a reflex that we want to bring new people in to fill the void of that. And who are you bringing in? Are they going to be real friends with real connections? Or is it just going to be another replacement for I hate using the word, but I'll use it in this case, to replace the toxicity that you just kicked out of your life? Or it's like you'll see people who will be hooked on drugs, for example, and then as they're in rehab, they take up smoking or something to try to deal with the stress of not doing the drugs anymore. Is smoking better than heroin? Yeah, I suppose so. But just understand that you are replacing, in that case, one bad thing with something that's just less bad. But you're not making your life, but you're still making your life worse by doing that, by introducing that into your life. People can be like this too. So the antidote, if loneliness is a disease, is not just hanging out with random people. Because if you're hanging out with random people, you're still going to be lonely. You're going to be in a group that you don't really belong to, that you don't really feel connected to. And you actually, in that case, do make things worse because you're not allowing room in your life for people to enter who actually could be better for you and who would actually help you to form real connections and real friends. And so, you fill up that gap, and it's like a sponge. You take a sponge and you put it in water. There's no more room in the sponge for water. There's no more room in your life for people, good people. You have to just wring out the sponge once in a while. And then the antidote to loneliness, therefore, is security. And as you guys have already said, security comes from having real friends who you can depend on. There's a security that's there. And how do you know that someone's a real friend? There's the connection. How do you make that connection? Well, you know about them, and they know about you. And you accept each other as you are. That doesn't mean that you cheer your friends on when they make bad decisions. Like this person I was talking about earlier, I've actively seen them cheer people on for making bad decisions. And I mean really bad life decisions. And of course what it is this person is very angry and miserable, and they like the idea of making other people angry and miserable. And I've seen, by the way, this person lose friends in their life because those people turn their lives around, and this person wasn't willing to change their life for the better either. So they end up just having to find new people, just like any cancer does. It has to find new hosts. So don't be a cancer. I don't care when you're born. Is that a hand or is that? Yeah.
Why do you think they were just supporting you no matter what decision you made was the worst one that they?
Because they want people to. I think it's actually so bad. How about this? I think I've told you guys before that I've only ever had alcohol once in my life. I don't drink. And a lot of times my students don't believe that, but I don't know why you would doubt that. I hope you know I would tell you if I did. But do any of you, from what you know about me so far, do any of you think I could possibly function in society if I drank? There's no way. I'm the guy, I'd go down to the market and go, I'd grab one bottle of everything off of the shelf just to try it all. And that's why I don't do it, because I know that that's the route I would go down in my life. But when I was playing in bands, you're always around drugs, you're always around alcohol. When we're on tour, you're always around that stuff. And I can't tell you how many times people would grab me and like, you gotta have a drink with us. And I don't drink. Oh, bullshit, you're drinking tonight. No, I'm not. Yeah, you are. Come on, man, have a shot with us, let's go. No, I'm not drinking with you. Why not? Because it would make me like you. And that usually stops people. And then after a little while, they'll be like, yeah, no, dude, I respect that, man. That's right. That's cool that you don't, you stay away from this stuff. It's, because why do they want to drag me into it? Because they don't like the person who's not into it. Why? Because it reminds them of who they are. Every ideal is a judge. And it isn't that the ideal itself is judging you. It's that you're judging yourself according to the ideal. If I were to let's say I wanted to make a drawing of a Coca Light bottle. This is not even Diet Coke. This is from Mexico. This is a Coca-Cola Light. If I wanted to draw this, I would take this bottle and I'd put it on a table, and then I would use it as a model as I'm drawing, right? I would reference it, I would look at it, and at the end, I could judge my drawing by how much it looks like the bottle. At the end of everything, if it doesn't look like the bottle, what do I do with that drawing? Stupid drawing, crumple it up and throw it away. That's one thing to do. Another thing that some people will do is they'll look at it and go, well, it's just my interpretation of the bottle. Could you have made it exact? No, of course not. So you accept that deficiency in your art, rather than saying, let me actually throw this drawing away, let me make it better, which is the smart thing to do. It's the same for life. There are people in our lives who are the actual Coca Light bottle. And we might try to imitate them, or we might look at that and go, I could never be that. I could never draw that. I could never imitate that. So then we just ignore it because we hate the fact that this reminds us of what we can never do. There are people like this who, in your life, if your ego can be such that, like if you're, say you're a dancer and you see somebody else who just is just an incredible dancer, you can look at them and hate them for it. You can work to become better, so that you can almost equal the imitation. I'm sorry, almost equal the form, equal the thing that the ideal, or you get angry at the ideal. But then if you get angry at the ideals, then how do you possibly aim upwards? I'll save you the hassle. You can't aim upwards. There's nothing for which to equal. And people will say like if you don't have a role model, for example. I think it's I really mean this, by the way. This is actually something I do believe. It kills me that you guys don't have role models really anymore. And we haven't. I mean, it's been a long time in this world since we've had role models. If I were to ask you, who do you look up to? Who do you admire in the world right now? And you might say my parents, fine, true, but celebrity-wise, I shouldn't say celebrity. Somebody who's well-known, a politician, a writer, a leader, something that you can look at and go, wow, you look back in history and who do you have? You have a lot of people. There's almost not a generation that goes by that you can't just sit there and say, and I'm talking about people who are alive right now who we could look at. Like who do we look up to right now? YouTubers? And what is it that we admire about them? They're famous and rich. And that's what we're aiming at, to be famous and rich? Not to have strong character? Not to do the right thing? Not to stand up to challenges? Not to overcome challenges? I mean, even think about a lot of people who we admire. Like you have like a YouTuber who's just constantly talking about their mental health struggles, and it's like, really, that's what we admire? Somebody who brags about their weaknesses? There's nothing, if you have those things, I'm not saying that you're weak, but what I am saying is that if you settle into it and you celebrate your deficiencies, then yeah, you are weak. Because you're acknowledging that you can never live up to an ideal. In fact, not even that you can't, because you probably could live up to the ideal if you set yourself to it. But you don't believe that you could, and you're not willing to try, because you're worried, because you're afraid of the failure of not reaching the ideal. You may never reach the ideal, and especially when you look at a lot of historical ideals. Because we mythologize people, we mythologize heroes. And so maybe you can't live up to like an MLK Jr., but you can, because the public persona that he has is that he's an absolutely, impeccable person. So what do we do now? We come along and we tell you, and you guys might not know this, Martin Luther King Jr. had lots of illegitimate children. He was sleeping with his secretaries. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. He's got illegitimate children running around. Wow, his moral character wasn't what I thought it was. So does that mean that now we feel better because now we've grabbed this guy, we've pulled him down a rung and said, wow, look at that. Turns out he's human. Do we use that to justify our own behavior now and say, I don't have to live up to the ideal anymore because nobody's perfect? That doesn't mean you can't try to be. But there are people who in their lives, they try to drag down everybody around them and they put so much time into dragging other people down that they never will be able to raise themselves up. And could they raise themselves up? Probably. But here's the thing, and it probably goes finally to answer your question, because trying to achieve brings with it the risk of failure, and then the psychological concern of what failure might mean about us. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. And it's that question enough that drives me crazy. Enough for what? Well, I'm not tall enough. Enough for what? I'm not pretty enough. Pretty enough? Enough for what? I'm not smart enough. Enough for what? I'm not kind enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. But what's the thing that you're saying you're not enough for? It's the ideal that we wish that we could live up to. So to try to live up to the ideal carries with it a desperate risk that you might not achieve that. The truth is that you probably will. If you really put your mind to it and you really aim for it, you probably will. And I get it. It's like a lot of us just don't believe in ourselves, and you've got good reason to not believe in yourself. I don't know how many people have ever told you that they do believe in you. One of the reasons I love doing this is I believe in you guys. I see some of you guys that have like all F's on your report card. I look up the grades, and I look at you with your all F's. And I look at you in class and I go, but you could become something. I know you could. I know you could. Why do you allow yourself to just have straight F's? Oh, I just don't care. Oh, no, it's not that you don't care, man. You said you're either ignorant and you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know, but you do know. There's people around you. You can see it in life. But moreover, man, it's like, why would you put in the effort if you don't believe that anything's going to, why would you put in the effort if you don't believe that anything's going to come of it? One of my students I'm thinking of, she's really, really smart, man. I've talked to her, she's really smart. She didn't believe it about herself, didn't see it. I'm like, dude, come on, man. There's one thing I know, it's smart people. I can look at you and say, your grades suck, but man, you are smart and you could do something with it. And it's not, and I tell them this not just so because it isn't enough just to know what you could do. And this person didn't believe me. It's like, I don't know what to say. It's like, what, do you think I don't know, or do you think I'm lying to you? Why did I lie to you about that? I want you to have real expectations for yourself. I wouldn't be so cruel as to tell you, you can do great things, and then behind your back, you're gonna fail. That's wicked. I'm capable of a lot of lows, man, but that's not lows, that's just cruelty. I'm not into that. But it's like this person has just never been told that. And so this is the first time they're hearing it. So of course you're gonna be skeptical about hearing it. But man, I believe in this person. I read you guys' journals. I know you think I don't, but I do. I don't know, man. do so much. Yeah. But you've got to get over not having an ideal. You've got to aim at something, man. You've got to have, even if it's just a collection of people who you want to be like in this regard, in that regard, in that regard, in that regard, then study them. Find out how they got to that point. Find out how you could then make those parallels in your own life and how you could get there, because you can. But with nothing to aim towards, and yeah, you're aimless. You won't be able to. So find an ideal, man. And then hopefully surround yourself with some people who also can aim at ideals, and you sharpen each other. Iron sharpens iron. And even if you guys end up going in different directions in life, you stay connected, you keep each other accountable. You'll be amazed at what you can do. And better yet, you'll be amazed at what you can inspire other people to do. That is making the world a better place. Not just for yourself, but for everybody who interacts with you, whether they realize it or not. Right now, they will eventually. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?